So you just tell us when we're allowed to pour a glass, Emily.
I just did. I already drank half the bottle.
That's it. All right, I'll join you, Ash.
A big day.
Pour the glass. Let's get
I've got kids.
they're in and they're rolling, I think. Georgie?
Ooh.
Yeah, we
That's
are
fair.
on.
Great.
Don't say you don't want to say.
Go for it, Ash. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Naked Wines Fine Wine Club virtual tasting. It's great to have a few of you join us this evening ahead of the Easter long weekend. You'll probably notice that Johan's not here tonight, so I'll be filling in for him. I've been in the background of the past two virtual tastings, but tonight you'll hear a little bit more from me. So look, Fine Wine Club, it is a really exciting and still a pretty fairly new addition to the Naked Wine subscription services, where we're putting together a six-pack once a quarter for you lovely subscribers. So look, I just want to say it's really thanks to you angels for subscribing to Fine Wine Club that we're able to showcase the very, very best of our winemakers' winemaking. And I have two of our winemakers joining us tonight and a third in a second, I'm sure. So Ash, who's there proudly on the screen, and we've got Gus as well.
Yes.
Let's go.
Intro, and Mark will be joining us. Mark Keneally will be joining us in a second too. So welcome to all of you that have joined and anyone that's watching this on playback. Hello. Ash Horner is, of course, the man behind Ash Horner Wines in the Hunter Valley, and Gus Aschwager and Mark Keneally, who are behind Happy Valley Road and Carpenter Rock labels. So Gus is coming to us live from NZ, and Mark should be joining us in a second from the McLaren Vale in South Australia. So look, these winemakers have been with Naked Wines for a long time, and they continue to make exceptional wines for us with angel backing, and they'll be showcasing and going through in a bit more detail tonight each of their wines that are involved in the March Fine Wine Club pack. So how tonight's going to go, Ash is going to be taking us through this beautiful one, which Ash, you can probably hold up as well.
Yep.
This is the Ash Horner Reserve Viognier, and Gus and Mark will be taking us through this gorgeous noir. If you can see it there. There we go. So if you are tasting along with us tonight, please take the lid off the Pinot and just let it breathe for a little bit. And I'm sure Gus would agree with me a bit there. He's already got the Pinot in the glass.
I just had a preview, and it needs at least 5 minutes breathing.
All right, take the lid off and ready to jump in that one shortly. So before I pass over to Ash and Gus and go through a few more details, I just want to talk to you guys about the other four gorgeous wines that are in your March Fine Wine Club pack. First up, we have the Cape Bernier Tasmanian Brut 2016 vintage. So this is made by Andrew and Jenny Sinclair, and it's made from absolutely premium, 100% estate grown grapes from their vineyard. And really, to say it shortly, this is truly a fine champagne style sparkling wine. It's got very delicate bead, it's got layers of aromas and quite a light, crisp palate to it. So Andrew and Jenny chose to leave the wine resting on lees for an extended period of time, and that's just really complementing fresh fruit flavors with more of a smooth and creamy texture. So a lot of tender love and care put into that wine, and a really premium sparkling. So I hope you enjoy it. Next up, pretty excited to talk about this one. This is our Daryl Groom Alexander Valley Cab Sav 2020 vintage. So being from the Alexander Valley in Sonoma in California, this is a really rare opportunity for you angels to be able to enjoy a Cabernet from a very well-respected region by a very renowned winemaker. So Daryl Groom, who you would know from his DRG, Barossa Shiraz, he is so extremely proud to present this wine to the Oz Fine Wine Club subscribers, and really so we should be. I mean, it appears big and it appears brooding, but the experience is smooth, it's silky and absolutely full of flavour. So you're going to experience really typical Cab Sav flavours, black fruits, vanilla, chocolate. And something that I like to think about when I'm drinking wine is the vintage that the wine is made in. And 2020 was a pretty difficult vintage in the region of California. They had a lot of devastating wildfires, which rings true to a lot of our Aussie winemakers as well. So it's pretty special that despite that, Daryl was able to make a really top-notch wine throughout that time. So next I want to talk about the Rabbit and Spaghetti, the Icon Shiraz 2020. Adam just makes beautiful wine, but this one in particular, he's sourced small parcels of really high quality grapes from 3 renowned regions in Australia. So that's from Barossa Valley, the McLaren Vale and Clare Valley. Look, it's dense, it's complex, it's full-bodied. It rings true of the South Australia Shiraz. But Adam takes a lot of care and consideration into making this wine, which gives you a really elegant drinking experience. So much like all of Adam's wines, the purpose of the Rabbit and Spaghetti label is to really bring people together through food and wine. So he's all about bringing people together through that, sharing stories, making memories. And something that I think about a lot with this wine is those cool autumn nights or winter nights where there's a decanter on the table filled with this wine, there's hard cheeses in the middle, there's lots of laughter going on and lots of stories being shared. And this wine seems to be the centerpiece of those kind of nights in my mind. So coming up to Easter, I think it's a perfect opportunity for you to crack that bottle and enjoy it. And the last one I'm going to talk about is the Byron and Harold Companions Winemaker 2021. I love talking about this wine. I love anything to do with Winemaker's Fantasy, which angels here tonight who know about Winemaker's Fantasy is something that Naked Wines do to give an opportunity to winemakers to basically pitch their fantasy wine, what wine they really want to make, or give them an opportunity to have a creative vice and think outside the box. So angels, they go ahead and vote for the wine that they want to see come to life. And when Ralph Dunning and Paul Byron, the 2 winemakers behind this wine, received this opportunity, they really thought celebrating their respective favourite regions. So that was combining the powerful Barossa Valley Shiraz with the ingredients of the Great Southern Shiraz. And whilst most people would say, why would you bother? They just said, why not? Let's go for it. And I think this wine really shows some serious winemaking skills because it's taken a lot of time and care in making the perfect blend that really shows. I absolutely love this pack. I think whilst it's thing to say, keepsake these wines and cellar them, and Gus and Ash as well with your wines too. I think it's awesome that you make wine that we can drink and enjoy now and crack it on our casual Thursday night right before Easter. So before I hand over to the boys, I encourage everybody to get involved tonight through the chat function of Zoom. Comment, ask questions, let us know your thoughts if you are tasting along. The guys are here and they're live, and I'm sure they'll be more than willing to answer all of your questions tonight. So I'm going to start off with Ash, of course, because it makes sense to start with white. I really want to jump into the glass, and I'm yet to actually pour myself one, but I just firstly want to say you joined Naked Wines in 2013. Am I right?
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah. 2013 was our first vintage. Yeah. Been a while, been a long time. Hope it goes another 10 off the.
Do you remember how it started back then?
Yeah, I just I saw an advert for Naked Wines. I actually saw they advertised Rebecca and Adrian Santlin and all about them and how they joined Naked Wines and what it's done for them as a small business and all that sort of stuff. I thought, holy hell, that sounds pretty good because, as a small, my dad had a vineyard and a small winemaker. You sort of wonder how you're going to get your wine out there and how you're going to sell it and, get in people's mouths. And I thought it was a great way to do it. So I wrote a letter, bit of a bloody not a far-fetched letter, but a bit of a story to it. They wanted a story and all that sort of stuff. So I put one in and got invited down with my wines, went down, met everyone. They tasted the wines and sort of handshake deal from then on to take my wines and sell my wines and make wine for Naked Wines Australia and the Angels. And haven't looked back really.
Yeah, well, and with that angel support as well, you and your wife Lauren, you're able to open a cellar door, right?
Yeah, we bought a winery with 25 acres, and we've just opened a cellar door. And actually, the label for the Viognier is actually a cellar door wine. So we just sell this through cellar door and a little bit of wholesale, but not much. We only do sort of 130 dozen a year, so not a lot. It's sort of our premium, one of our premium white wines on our list. Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead.
Angels probably wouldn't have seen that label. Maybe that's all. So
yes, exactly. Yeah. It's the first time Angels you would have seen this label, which is, let's just take a second on that. It is gorgeous. I mean, it really kind of sets up the standard of this is going to be a really elegant, gorgeous wine, and which it is. And I'll get to that in a second. Actually, let's get to it now. Let's get straight to it.
Yep.
So tell me, what's with this wine and you? Is this a varietal that you love? Like, where did this all get birthed from? I guess.
Well, here's a little funny. I don't know if it's a joke, but people might laugh. But I got told I'm very Rhônal, which means I make a lot of Rhône varieties. So Rhône from France, the Rhône Valley, because I do Shiraz Viognier. I actually made Marsanne this year. I went to the Rhône Valley and did a Grenache Shiraz Mourvedre. And the Hunter Valley is sort of similar in temperature and climate to the Rhône Valley, they think, in terms of reds and being so close to the ocean and the influence from the sea and just how hot it gets. It gets really hot in the Rhône, so really good for reds. And it also gets a lot of rain too, which the Hunter does as well. So they sort of think that. So a lot of those Rhône varieties sort of suit the Hunter Valley. So obviously we've got Shiraz, which used to call Hermitage in the Hunter. And we also got plantings of Viognier and stuff like that through the area as well. But there's not a lot of it. We've probably got 5 vineyards of Viognier. Yeah. Yeah, sort of. I reckon it grows pretty well in the Hunter, but they sort of championed Fiano and sort of those emerging varieties. But my dad used to grow Viognier, and Naked Wines Angels would have known when I first started. I always had a reserve organic Viognier on the list, which was always well received. And we did pretty good things with the Viognier up there. We won a gold medal and a trophy for Organic Wine of the Year and stuff like that, a few medals. And and it's always sold and people have really welcomed to the variety, even though it's pretty hard to say. And that's probably one of the reasons why the variety hasn't really taken off. I mean, people can say Sauvignon Blanc, Gus.
Yeah.
But they can't say Viognier.
No, it's not phonetic. You get all sorts of variations like Viognier and
my variation.
Sauvignon Blanc's like that long.
Yeah,
and people just rolls off the tongue.
So do you reckon?
So
Ash, do you reckon that's why it's rarely grown? Because
because it just didn't take off in terms of a variety. I don't think with people, but I think serious drinkers know what Viognier is and really like Viognier. Also, I don't think in Australia, I don't think we did justice in style, in variety of Viognier early on. There was sort of a big of styles, and usually variety Viognier in the Rhône Valley is picked very, very late, and it can usually be around 14% alcohol, and you get that really apricot-y flavors, and you get very effervescence of alcohol, a lot of like alcohol in the nose, on the palate. It'd be quite effervescence, that sort of alcoholic feel, which I don't really like. So with ours, we pick ours a lot earlier, a lot fresher. So ours is around 13% alcohol. We get more of that lemon, lime, green apple, and then we put it in some nice oak, and we use a lot of lees to build texture and that around the wine and give it some body. Without that, there's a touch of apricot there, but not without all the apricot. I've had ones where it's just like drinking apricot out of a tin. It's all right for a little bit.
There's a lot of layers to this one. Okay.
Yeah,
And
a lot of layers. Yeah.
So typically, is this a wine that is used for like a late harvest, kind of almost dessert fortified
Can be.
wine?
I've made one for Naked Wines as well, late harvest early on in the years. Yeah, yeah. And it went really well, and I'm still drinking it now. Ages really, really well in bottle like a Botrytis or a late harvest wine. Yeah, it can do. But when picked fresh, it's a really nice, fresh, easy drinking style. Sort of suits seafood. It can suit like roast chicken and light meats as well. That sort of stuff because it's got the oak and the texture from the lees. Yeah.
Yeah. So like kind of a perfect wine to roll into the Easter long weekend.
That's right.
Like
It'll go with seafood as well if you want it to. Yeah. I mean, wine goes with everything really. Depends what you want to highlight it with.
And what's interesting, Ash, is I mean, as far as I knew about this varietal, I always thought, oh, this is a food wine. Like this is a wine to have with food. But it sounds like you've touched on it a little bit there. But what you've done in the winemaking process has allowed this to be so good on its own. So talk us through a few more details on that. Was that, you said there was a touch of oak, but didn't have too much time in oak?
Yep. So the key, like I said early on, is picking. So getting it early, nice and early. That sort of 12 Beaumet. So 12 Beaumet can equate to 12.5 or 13% alcohol, depending on what happens. There you go, Mark. Nice to see you.
Oh, Mark,
you brush your hair.
Technical difficulties. I apologise.
You're all right, mate. Well, good to see you.
How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Yeah, so it's all about the picking early, and then in the winemaking process is trying to keep it nice and fresh as possible in the winemaking, and then we sort of put 50% in tank for ferment, and we put 50% straight to oak for ferment as juice. And we find when we ferment the juice in the oak, we just get a better integration of the oak tannins into the wine, and then they will both stay on them lees, that yeast lees, after fermentation for sort of 4 months. And we'll stir that through, and I actually stir it through quite early at the end of ferment without sulfur. And I find it just breaks down the lees component, which has got menoproteins in it, which gives a creamy texture and breaks it down a lot earlier. So as soon as you add sulfur, it sort of locks it up and it's harder to break down. My hands are nice and red, aren't they?
You've been doing harvest.
Put it down. I'm a mechanic. Yeah, so we do a lot of that, a lot of stirring to add texture, but there's still nice freshness and nice. So you get a lot of lemon lime on the nose, a little bit of that oatmeal-y toasty on the nose as well from the oak, and the palate's nice and fresh, but got breadth of lees and oak, toasty oak, a little bit of Hungarian, a little bit of French oak as well. So.
Oh, okay, so you use 2 different oak.
Yeah, it's old oak, not too new. Yeah,
Okay.
And softer oak as well.
You have to send some over to NZ for me, mate. You've sold me.
Yeah, it's pretty good, eh?
Yeah,
I'll write the recipe out for you. I'll get royalties. No, I really like making Viognier because you can treat it a bit like Chardonnay, and give a bit of oak and lees and that sort of stuff, and bloody eats it up. So
it's got so much flavour as well.
Yeah, it does.
Do you ever use the skins in your Shiraz?
Nah, I use full berries. So if I'm going to do Shiraz, I'll pick it as full berries with I'll leave it out there. I'll pick it early for the Viognier like this, and then I'll leave it out there for the Shiraz. Yeah,
you're right. And you co-ferment it.
Yeah, yep. I haven't done one for a while. I did a Shiraz Marsanne, what I've been doing lately.
Oh yeah, right.
I haven't been able to get the Viognier and stuff for like at the right time in the Shiraz.
Yeah,
that sort of stuff.
Did you notice it? Does it give you more colour and flavour?
Yeah, brighter colour and reds and aromatics and a bit of sweetness on the palate. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Seems to be Shiraz Viognier seems to be coming back into vogue a little bit here in the Vale. There's a few people starting to do them again.
Yeah, a bit lighter too, I think.
Yeah, I reckon it is. Yeah. No, Viognier is very underrated and should be more of it. But yeah, I don't know. But I like doing it in small quantities, and and it's not an easy sell out in the marketplace, but in the cellar door, and when you can get it in people's mouths and explain what you do and how they taste it and that, they love it.
Really, they love it.
Yeah.
And so should we be, Ash, talk to us about the temperature we should be having this at? I mean, I'll be honest, I did try it straight out of the fridge, and it's much better since I've had it out. I mean, is that what you do?
I don't think, I think
like
with this, Yeah, I think 'cause it's also still very delicate in terms of those aromatics like the lemon, lime, and the citrus, and it's a very fresh wine, not too cold because it sort of masks those sort of flavors. I think as it warms up, that sort of flavors open up and the palate opens up a bit. Yeah, for sure. And that's a sign of aging as well. It'll age as well. This Viognier. Yeah, you'll get more sort of sweeter characters and toasty.
So how long do you think?
Oh, easy 5 years, easy under screw cap. Yep. It just depends when you like to drink that sort of stuff, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll just get softer and broader and more toasty, I think. The oak.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
Bit like a Chardonnay. Yeah.
If you can hang on to it for that long,
that's right.
See how you go. But we may or may not have some, at the back of house ready for you if you desperately so need it to.
Yeah, only small quantities, but yeah, it's good. But get on it.
That's
cool.
it, absolutely.
Thank you.
And you rolled around a few different food options because you were like, this just goes with so much. But is there an ultimate for you or something weird? What are you having tonight?
Oh, pork belly is a go with pork cracker. I really like that, and a bit of like creamy pasta on the side. Here we go. Yeah, that's like creamy pasta dishes. Pork belly, yeah, roast chicken, fish.
So something with a little bit of
it's very versatile. Very versatile. Hey?
Something with a little bit of fat because it's
yeah, that's right, because you got the freshness and they got the texture there.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. And I should have said Angels as well. I mean, it's awesome all the guys have joined us tonight because they are right in the middle of vintage and harvest. And I think Ash showed us his beautiful like red nail.
Probably not as red as Mark's.
It's like
mine got a cleaning today, actually.
Citric acid.
Did you guys?
Yeah, I did a bit of a citric wash up this morning.
Yeah.
I was picking Sauvignon Blanc this time last night, so.
No, you're clean.
Yeah.
You're looking a lot fresher than when I spoke to you about 7:30 this morning, Gus.
Yeah.
It's
true. Yeah, it was a little late night.
That's true.
Thank you so much, Ash.
No worries. Thank you. Thanks, Angels.
If you have tasted along tonight, make sure you jump onto the website or the app and give this a rate because I'll certainly be rating that I'll buy it again, Ash. And
thank you.
About that
thanks,
later.
guys. Yep.
Gus and Mark, thanks for joining. I'm glad you could make
Sorry,
it.
I apologise. I didn't jump on earlier. I couldn't find the Zoom email. I didn't have the link.
Well, you got it now. You're here, and that's the most important thing. And it's really special for us to have both of you here because you're going in 2 different time zones right now, and you're doing your respective harvests and vintages. So look, Angels, the Elschwager and Keneally family wines winemaking team, I should say, between Mark and Gus and their wives, is a really awesome opportunity for us to have winemakers that make wines from various regions across 2 different countries as well. So guys, you joined Naked Wines in 2014.
Yeah.
Or 8 years going on 9 years, which is let's celebrate that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
How do you guys make it work being in 2 different locations? Gus, you're in New Zealand. Mark, you're in the McLaren Vale. How do you guys make that work?
Yeah, so I mean, back in 2014 when we first joined Naked, we were both living in New Zealand, and Mark and I came up with a crazy idea one day to, like Ash said, send an email to Naked Wines. We'd just been on a surfing trip, and we thought,
where all good ideas are concocted.
Yeah. We thought, well, we're sick of making wine for other people. Let's try and make some of our own. And it was actually Mark that came up with the idea, and I said, well, that sounds like a great idea. Let's give it a crack. And at the time, I was working for Oyster Bay, and I had to keep my name on the down low. And Mark was working for Martour, and so we managed to convince Naked Wines to let us make a Sauvignon and a Pinot, and from Marlborough. And then my wife Swan, we made it with her in her family winery, and we basically got the first one out there, and it was basically quite a small vintage, but it really got us across the line. And we started with a label that definitely wasn't as colourful as this, and then the next year, then we created this design, and this is actually a variant of the Tappy wine, which is.
Hang on, Gus.
You got it?
Let me get my collection. Oh, you got an OG?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the original 2014 label.
That's the 2014.
And
wow.
yeah, and I
Big
think
difference.
Angel funded on the back there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we thought after the first year was a success, we thought we'd actually try a bit harder and make something that was worthy of, you know, putting in a bottle on the label. And Mark was friends with the designer in Adelaide, and they came up with this idea, which, so our brand story from New Zealand is really like Tappy is short for Mount Tapio-Inuku, which is the tallest mountain in Marlborough. And then the one we're trying tonight is the Tititia, which is the Maori name for Mount Aspiring, which is the tallest mountain in Central Otago. So that's, even though it looks the same, it's a different shape. It's one's, they call it the Matterhorn of the South because it's really pointy. And yeah, and it's actually, if you've ever been to Wanaka in Central, it's the mountain you look over Lake Wanaka to. It's quite an amazing vista. Sort of the view that you think of in New Zealand when you think of amazing vineyards and poplar trees.
Yeah, it's very photographed, but yeah, I suppose that label we took the same theory that we had with Tappy, which was just, and Tappy is very prominent in Marlborough where all of the vineyards are. So you know, in a large majority of the vineyards, and certainly the ones that go into Tappy, you can see Tappy from. So that was the original inspiration behind that, and then we've sort of followed the same inspiration for Tititia.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
I love that. I always love the story behind the brand, and yeah, I mean, it's such a strong, you know, really strong labels that are presented in this pack as a whole. But
yeah.
I love it. And so then, Mark, you then moved over to South Australia.
Yep, correct. Yeah, so I'm from here. And I sort of grew up working in McLaren Vale. So it was a bit of a homecoming for us in 2016, I think, and we bought our vineyard here at Cully Road in 2017. So we sort of took it as an opportunity to. It was probably a family move, but it's something I've sort of always wanted to do. And we spoke to Gus and Swan about it, and then we approached Naked and said, look, rather than split up, we'd like to stay together, but expand into a few different regions, and we'll just sort of have like sub brands under Allschwager Keneally for each region that's sort of genuine to its place, I suppose. Yeah. So hence Cully Road and Carpenter Rocks were born.
Yeah, awesome. So Mark, you look after the Cully Road, Carpenter Rocks kind of operations of that, and then Gus, you kind of own and look after everything that comes out of NZ.
Yeah, exactly.
We do. I think sort of day to day, yes, because obviously Gus lives in Marlborough and I live here, but we collaborate on everything. You know, only up until 20 minutes before this call, we were speaking on some Sauvignon Blanc over here, and you know, COVID had its challenges for everybody. So we weren't moving around as much as we do, but I'm probably in New Zealand 4 times a year, and Gus is probably here 4 times a year. And we collaborate, you know, and we do that around a blending or whatever it is. So it still very much is, you know, a proper collaboration.
Yeah,
we like to bounce ideas off each other and keep across what we're doing. I suppose, you know, you sort of, we day to day, yes, I'm the man on the ground here in Australia and Gus is over there, but we certainly try and keep across. And, you know, I'm very passionate about our New Zealand vineyards and brands. and likewise for Gus, obviously being an Australian living in New Zealand, so it gives him a chance to be over here and you know, create and still make some great Australian wines too.
Yeah, you guys are truly a fully winemaking team. So let's talk about
hard to find other winemakers and such, like, you know, working together. That's good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, it's a lot of fun.
Business, it's hard to find, mate. The right person for you, you know, because winemakers are funny bastards. They've got their ways.
Yeah. That's right.
They're a little bit OCDCs and DCACs.
Yeah.
You know, you need someone to really get you. And
yeah, absolutely.
That's good. Yeah.
No, it works well, and we're, you know, we've got, you know, it's not just Mark and I as well. Swan, my wife, and Emma, Mark's wife, they're both very involved, and you know, it's our full-time job for all four of us. So
it's a life.
It keeps us busy.
Yeah.
Well,
I've learned that it helps to stay more in the vineyard and when things get a bit difficult. And Swan looks after the wine more. So, but it's really good. It's really good partnership. And basically, I suppose we've fast forward back to 2020. I think we got the opportunity to do the Naked Fantasy. Like fantasy wine, you had to pitch a concept to the Angels, and you guys, the Angels, thanks very much for voting for us, because we pitched a Central Otago Pinot Noir, and being COVID, we were sort of thinking, well, what can we do that's still exciting but still on the same island? So we luckily we had Central Otago there, and Mark, from his time in New Zealand, had some really good connections down in Central, because he'd spent quite a bit of time there, Mark.
Yeah, I used to look after quite a lot of vineyard for Treasury when I had a day job in New Zealand, working for someone else. But the other interesting thing about this parcel of fruit that we've got is we've been working on it for years to try and get a foot in the door, because it's a really cool vineyard, and there's not very much organic Pinot Noir down there, so it's very hard to sort of get your foot in the door. So even though we did have connections, we've been working on it for sort of years, saying, you know, when it comes up, Timbo and Jace, when it comes up, let us know. We want to have a little bit, sort of thing, and it just so happened that the year that we won the fantasy, we were able to finally get our foot in the door down there.
Yeah.
Now we're enjoying it now. How awesome is that? Because you guys don't only make this one, you also have the Marlborough Pinot, and you also have the Mount Gambier Pinot.
Correct.
So you guys clearly love to make Pinot.
Yeah.
Why do you love it?
We specialize in Pinot. It's just a great wine. Like, the variety expresses the place more than any other variety, I find. So we get a different character, even though the vines are sometimes we talk about clones a lot with Pinot Noir, which are sub-variants of Pinot Noir, and we have the same clones in, say, Mount Gambier and Marlborough, and yet we still get a very different wine. So
just based on the climate,
the soil,
and the soil.
The way it's been grown in the vineyard, whether it's been shoot positioned or leaf plucked or all that sort of stuff, all makes a difference. But more than anything, it's just the place itself, like the climate and the soil probably make the biggest difference.
Yeah.
So like, for example, Marlborough, we get more of a cherry, even like a bright raspberry type aroma sometimes.
And quite high tone sort of fruit.
It's really lifted. And Mount Gambier, you're more into like a violet and floral expression. And then Central Otago is more of a darker plum. It's a bit more tannin, and you know, it from one year to the next, it changes as well, depending on how cold it is.
Yeah.
So
what was this vintage like in Central Otago?
So this is 2021. So 2021 was quite a warm year initially, and then it cooled off in late autumn, and normally we pick in late April. So yeah, basically was quite hot and dry, and then we thought it was going to be early, and then it just cooled right off, and we didn't. We were sort of waiting for it and waiting, and then I think they got some snow because the mountain. So where it is at the top of Lake Cromwell, which it's the area is called Bendigo, and it's an amazing hill range, sort of old gold mining area, and I think the vineyard's at about 350 meters of altitude, so it's quite high.
Yeah, that'd be about right. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you look out over the vineyard, it's right on top of a hill. So you look out across a big valley, and then another hill range, which is even bigger, which is sort of over there is Wanaka. But yeah, it sometimes snows in late vintage there, and you'll have snow on the mountain while you're trying to pick Pinot. So
Yeah.
it's freezing cold. But
and so the sub region is called Bendigo. So I think there's about 5 sub-regions in the Central Otago. Well, there might be a few more. It might be about 6 within the Central Otago banner. But Bendigo is certainly one of the best, and it gets even though it's elevated and it's quite cool. I think Central Otago's so well set up for growing Pinot because they get really dry, warm days. And they do get quite a dry summer usually. They're not immune to a wet summer, but usually it's quite a dry summer down there. But very, very diurnal temperatures, so it'll still drop to often like sort of close to zero overnight. Like it'll be 2 or 3 degrees in the morning throughout most of the growing season, and then back up to 33, 34, 35 degrees that next day. So there's this huge temperature fluctuation, which Pinot seems to love. I think it sort of manages, you get these ripe, beautiful fruit flavors from the warmth, but it retains its acidity and its tightness and its freshness from the cool nights, and then usually into the ripening period, as Gus was saying before. It gets really quite cool, and so you often get this long hang time. So we're sort of waiting around, and sometimes the waiting game can be a bit of a pain in the backside. But you end up with these really, a properly physiologically ripe fruit as well as just a sugar ripe. So you end up with these really complex, deep, dark flavors.
Yeah, right. Okay, I was just going to say, is that what's giving it that? It's almost like it's trapping that the dark plum that you were talking about before, Gus, in the glass. And I mean, with Pinot, I'm someone that loves to kind of pop a Pinot in the fridge a little bit before I have it. And this one in particular, because of its style, would you more treat it like a typical red wine, or would you recommend still do that, popping it in the fridge, for example?
For me, it kind of depends on what the temperature is outside or wherever you are. If it's a warm day, I would be definitely popping it in the fridge, then take it out for 10 minutes and let it warm up a little bit. If it's winter though, just room temperature is perfect with a nice hot meal. So it's
You're thinking Marlborough winter, not Sydney winter.
Yeah, true. Yeah, if you're in
I'll
Brisbane,
tell you a little secret. I'm coming live from the Blue Mountains. So
there you go. Oh,
yeah. So
cold up there.
Drop in temperature. I do have the Ugg boots on beneath this.
yeah. So you're probably more room temperature location at this point.
At this point, yeah.
That way you like Pinot, Gas. You can just crack it any time.
Yeah. I'll get to wear own boots all the time.
So versatile.
Yeah. I was going to say that the temperature thing's a bit different than the hunter. I'm bloody picking in 40 degrees.
Yeah.
You're
Right,
picking in snow.
Yeah.
Are you still having warm days, Ash?
No, we're just starting to cool down. We're sort of max
Right.
25, maybe 22s, but we're getting down to 10 degrees at night.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why we pick our Viognier early too, because we don't want it too ripe. And
Yeah.
with hot days and that, it just bloody burns it and
Yeah.
you know, and
Gotta get him.
ruins all the delicate flavors like you guys are talking about, which are
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
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 You know,
Absolutely.
McLaren Vale can be like that. Although
Yeah.
this year's been a cooler one.
Yeah, this year's no rush, but yeah, often we'll pick. We sort of have to go early before a heat event. Yeah,
Mm.
but getting back to Central as well. So getting on to picking. So we handpicked that block.
Oh, right. Okay.
Gus and I are hoping to be down there in a couple of weeks, but I'm still waiting on some Sauvignon Blanc from Mount Gambier to get over the line before I have to fly. Yeah.
You're getting cold down there.
Yeah, it is. So we'll handpick that, and then it comes up in a refrigerated truck overnight to the winery in Marlborough. So how long is it, Gus? It's probably 10 hours in the truck. Probably take
A bit longer, actually.
a bit longer, 12
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
about 12 hour.
Yeah.
It's really, you pick it and then the next morning it arrives. And
You guys have to warm it up in the winery or what? If it's so cold.
It comes in so cold.
Yeah.
Ash, it's like it's
Turn the
it's
heaters on,
amazing.
I'll
It's
turn the
freezing.
coolant on, you'll turn the heaters on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we normally give it a cold soak. So so I usually try and get down the sort of week of picking, look at it and make a call on whether it's going to be 5 days or another 8 days before picking. And then once it is picked, I'll be up in Marlborough ready to receive it, and we'll choose from going down to the vineyard. I'll be looking at how ripe the stems are on the bunches, and if the raki, which is the name of the stem, is more brown than green, or it's got some brown on it, we'll be including whole clusters into the ferment. So this vintage had 30% whole clusters included into the ferment. So instead of destemming all of it and discarding the stems, we include 30% with the stem in. And what we find that, sorry?
Yeah. What does that choice do for the wine? Is that
So it gives a really nice texture. We call it tannin. It's a stem tannin. So if you've ever chewed on something green, it sort of gives you sometimes a little bit of a bitterness or a dryness on the tongue. And we find that when you swallow the wine, if it doesn't have a bit of that dryness, it doesn't give you a good finish. So in some years you want a bit more of that, and particularly in really ripe years, or in years that need, if the fruits say really fruity and we need to draw in the structure a bit more, we'll choose to include
without adding tannin, for instance, like a lot of big guys do, and without maybe putting in so much newer oak and stuff like that. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
Without
using what
repairing
you've
the
got,
wine.
and it actually is
Natural.
far better than the tannins you can buy. So you can buy packet tannins which are extracted from trees and oak and nuts and all sorts. But these natural tannins from the Pinot stems are actually giving you exactly what you want to balance out the skins and the flesh of the fruit. And
it's making me salivate as I drink
That
it.
sounds good. Yeah.
Plus having those whole
sounded
bunches
good.
in
That
there as
tastes
well.
yeah. So like in the aroma, I can smell it, and it comes across as like a slight graphite sort of aroma. If you ever had like the end of a pencil, there's a bit of that in there, and that I think comes from the whole bunch stems, and
also with the whole bunch as well, we end up with a bit of whole bunch character as well with the fruit, not just the tannin.
Yeah, carbonic.
So we get a bit of sort of carbonic there as well. which is sort of like a bit sort of confected or a bit kind of hubba bubba. Often you can sort of see that in it.
Hubba Bubba's good. When you see Hubba Bubba when you're pressing your reds,
you know that purple, the purple Hubba Bubba, whatever that
I know
one's
what you
called.
mean, Mark.
Yeah.
Hey, I said that to a bloke one day at the wine, and he thought I was bloody tripping. I tell you, I'm glad I heard that.
Yeah,
it's a good sign. I thought it was. Yeah.
I agree. So you get some really lifted, confected sort of notes in the fruit as well, which is a lovely sort of addition and balance in the wine.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Hubba Bubba.
And to help it age as well, I'm going to say, right? Like,
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And
So what sort of age are we talking on this Pinot?
I mean, it's very young, so it could easily be 10 years. Yeah.
No
Under screw cap, it's probably going to go 20 years.
Yeah,
That's it. Unknown.
Yeah.
Just like Ash's Viognier, under screw cap. I mean,
who knows?
I think you said 5 years, Ash?
I said 5. I'm understating probably, but 5. I'll say 8 at the most. But who knows under screw cap? If you're good winemaking in a sound wine, crackies.
Yeah, and got some acid.
Just develop and
that's right. Yeah.
So I don't know if anyone will be able to keep it for 20 years, but if anyone does, definitely invite me around in 20 years' time. I'll be
So we kind of digress a little bit there, but we got to this one had 30% of it whole bunch.
Yes.
So anything else in terms of the winemaking decisions that you guys made that really add to this wine?
Yep. So we do a cold, because it comes up cold. We don't just waste all the cold. We put it into a tank cold. So we crush 70% and then layer in the whole bunches as we're filling the tank. And so it's sort of like a cake as it goes in. And then it sits cold. So it might be 5 degrees at that point. So it'll sit cold, and we'll put chilling on the tank to keep it that cold. So it sits in the tank for about 6 days, usually in what's called a cold soak. And
any pump overs, or you just any plungers or anything?
Well, no, we just leave it. Yep, just leave it. And we check the top of it, we clean anything that needs cleaning. We add a bit of dry ice on the top, which just keeps the oxygen away, because the aromas in Pinot Noir are more esters, which are really fragile compounds when you get oxygen contacting them. So we try and keep oxygen away from the Pinot once the berries are crushed. And then once we've cold soaked for 6 days, what we're looking for is the natural enzymes that are present in the grape skins. They start slowly breaking down the little parts of the skin to start releasing the color. And so you'll be looking at the juice and seeing if it's got any red color starting. And that's sort of a sign that, okay, the grapes are ready to give you the color. So let's get the ferment going. So we then turn the warming on the tank and warm it up to say 24 degrees. And we let the natural yeast that came in on the grapes start the ferment, and it just starts fermenting. So
you said you have warming, do you?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, like as in like, so we've got brine, like is that like just hot water? Or?
Yeah, so it's hot water, and it's run off a heat recovery unit off the cooling tower in the winery. So it just it's like a reverse cycle air conditioner type thing. So we're using the heat off the air conditioner to heat ferments when we want to start them for reds. And that, it works really well, and you don't have to heat it up for very long. A couple of days of warming, and then the yeast take over, and then you're back to cooling to try and limit the temperature. And we cap the temperature at about 32 degrees, and it's quite hot. A lot of Australian ferments will be more like 26, 28. So Pinot, you need to get a bit hotter. you want to extract a bit more color, and
Right.
the tannins are quite soft in Pinot. A lot of people probably wouldn't know, but Pinot is actually a great variety that's mutated from a white variety. So it's originally was white, and then it's suddenly turned into a red grape through evolution. And that means that it's missing some of the color compounds that normal red grapes like Shiraz have. And
So
that's
is
why,
that like harder to extract the color, and it's also because it's a thinner skin, right, compared to
yeah,
other.
and there's just less color to be extracted. So
Yeah.
that's why Pinot is always a little bit lighter in color. It doesn't have all the color compounds that traditionally red grapes have, because it
Like
was
Shiraz.
originally white.
Like Shiraz. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you doing like multiple pump overs and punch downs to really extract
Yeah,
color from that, or is heat you rely? I mean, I like Central Otago Pinot. You obviously can punch downs, pump overs, depending on what your end goal is. How do you manage the ferment?
Yep. So once it's warmed up and the yeast form the cap, which means all the skins float to the top of the ferment, we then have to press the skins back down into the juice to get the color to extract into the juice. And it's probably early on in ferment, we work when it's hot and the yeast are most active, we do a lot of mixing. So it'll be up to 3 times a day. And that's usually plunging, which means, a big stick with a plate on the end of it and pushing the skins back down. And then we do a thing called a delestage about halfway, which is taking out all the juice from underneath the cap into another tank. And then we pump it back over the top of the cap and break the cap up completely. And that just gives the tank a really good mix, gets the yeast some air. So yeast like oxygen. And so you splash the wine and it releases. At that point, it's protected from oxygen, like the aromas are protected because you've got lots of carbon dioxide coming out of the ferment, because the yeast eat sugar, they make alcohol, and they let out CO2, which is essentially a protectant for the wine as well. So while that's happening, you can actually mix it up and get the air in there to support the yeast without losing any aroma. So it's quite confusing because part of the time we're trying to exclude oxygen, and then during ferment we want lots of oxygen, and then once ferment stops we don't want oxygen. So it's
there's a window.
Yeah,
there's a window of opportunity there to add a bit and keep the yeast happy and just break up the cap, as Gus said.
Yeah.
Gus, do you want to touch on like sort of extended skin contact?
Yeah. So then, depending on the year as well, once ferment finishes, we look at the tannin integration and the length on the palate, and decide how long we're going to keep it on skins. And this wine, we kept it on for about another 5 days after all the sugar had been converted to alcohol.
Wow. Yeah. Right.
And at that time you have to be extremely gentle, because alcohol is like a solvent, and it's really good at extracting things, especially like tannins from the seeds. And if you work it too hard or mix it too much, you can quickly end up with a wine that's really dry and quite astringent. So, but with Pinot, because it doesn't have lots of color, we want to be able to use some of that tannin to help stabilize the color. So we soak it after ferment, and that just builds the palate structure through extracting some more tannin. We get a better color result from giving it that bit of extra time, and we'll be tasting it every day at that point to decide when to press off skins.
Wow.
So
And yet all that time and it's still so juicy. Like it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mark, I think I cut you off there.
I was just going to say, so it's quite a long ferment, really. If you include the cold soak, it's sort of in fermenter for, well, I don't know, what's that, 20 days or?
Yeah, it's easily 3 weeks. Sometimes
Yeah, it's 3 weeks.
4.
So,
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, that's double me.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know,
I'm 12
and
days, something like that. So,
you know, it's triple what we do in McLaren Vale with Reds. So,
Yep.
it's just about extracting, like what Gus was saying, and being very gentle. So it takes time, Pino.
Yep.
Yeah, and much like a lot of these wines that are, well, all of these wines, I should say, that are in this fine wine club pack, a lot of time, a lot of consideration, and like you're saying, you're trying it every day to wait for the right time to stop and you know, move on to the next stage. So we are starting to come to the end of tonight's session, but quickly, guys, I really need to know, what's our food match for the Easter long weekend for the Pinot? Come on.
Oh, well.
Easter eggs.
Classic.
That's a good one, actually. That'd work, I reckon. Chocolate, for sure.
Yeah, no, probably my favourite would be like a butterflied lamb on the barbie. Just, you know, you just get it perfectly pink in the middle and then slice a bit off on some nice crusty bread and a bit of mustard, and it's good to go.
Yeah.
I've already had dinner, but I'm hungry. That sounds so good. Now, any questions from our angels at all? I think we had a comment here before. Someone definitely complimenting you, Ash.
Yeah, replied to him.
Winemaker who's into making his brilliant whites, which he knocks out of the park. So no surprises there with that comment. Any questions from angels before we wrap up for this evening? No? Nothing?
No.
3, 2, 1. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining. Ash, Gus, and Mark, you've been an absolute treat. It's been a privilege to have you on here. I really appreciate the time you've taken out of those phone calls about the Sauv Blanc, or, you know, being elbow deep, Ash, in the winery. So thank you so much for joining. Hope you all have a lovely Easter, and everyone who has tuned in, hope you also have a lovely Easter. And as you go through this pack, jump onto the Naked Wines website, jump onto the Naked Wines app and rate the wine. Let us know what you think. Have a good one.
Great. Thanks, Emily.
Thanks guys. Thanks, Angels. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Angels.
Yeah, thanks, Angels. Thanks. Do you hear me screaming kids in the background just then?
A little bit.
Yeah. I've had to mute on and off for the whole time.